Alright, this is just more practice of examples, like example 4 from the previous video. This one will be a little bit tougher than the one we did in the last video, but we're going to do it the same way. We're going to start off by factoring the denominators. So both of these denominators are actually factorable. The tops I don't care about factoring. Even if they could be, we wouldn't do it anyway. So x plus 2 on top drops. On the bottom, I can take a 2 out, and I'm left with x minus 1. Even though that doesn't seem like a big deal, you do want to factor that. The top over here, again, does not change. Even if it could be factored, we wouldn't. The bottom has 3 terms, so factors of 3 that will get me -4 are -3 and -1. And what we're going to do now is try to get those common denominators. So if you notice, one nice thing about this question, both of my fractions have an x minus 1 on the bottom, so we're not going to have to worry about that. The first thing I notice is this side has a 2 on the outside that this fraction over here does not have. So I want to multiply the top and the bottom by a 2. So now they both have 2's. They both have x minus 1's. So now this side, this right side, has everything the left side has. So I can actually close those parentheses. This right side has an x minus 1, an x minus 3 that the left side does not have. So I need to make that side have an x minus 3. So now they both have 2's, they both have x minus 1's, they both have x minus 3's. So all I have to do now is simplify the numerators, which for this question is going to be a little bit more difficult because we got a binomial times a binomial. So we are going to have to FOIL. So you have to know how to FOIL, of course. So x times x is x squared. I'm going to do the O and the I together. You should be able to do this at this point in your algebra classes. X times 2 is 2x. -3 times x is -3x. So you got 2x minus 3x, which is a -1x. And then the L in FOIL is -3 times 2, which is -6. And if you're good at factoring, you kind of backtrack and check your work. You know, factors of -6 that get you -1 or -3 and 2. And then the bottom is just going to be your factored form. I always put the number first, and then it doesn't make any difference what order you put these in. I'm just going to put them in the order they're written, just x minus 3, x minus 1. The minus sign drops, and then over here, all we have to do is distribute the 2. 2 times -2x is -4x. 2 times -1 is -2. The bottom I'm going to rewrite because it should be the same as the left fraction, which it is. So the hard part, in my opinion, is done. What we're going to have to do now is combine like terms, being very careful and realizing that this is a subtraction problem. So my next step is going to be over that common denominator. We're trying to get this down to just one fraction. X squared minus, well, there is no x squared, so that x squared just drops. -1x, this is where you have to be careful. -1x minus -4x. Well, -1 minus -4 is a positive 3x. And then -6 minus -2 is a -4. Now, sometimes you would be done at this step, but this is what I was talking about in the previous video, is that sometimes you can go a step further. So this is just a single fraction, and just like we did back in the previous section where we were just factoring and canceling, we're going to try to do that here. I can actually factor the top. Factors of -4 that get me a positive 3 are positive 4 and -1. The bottom is already factored. This is why we don't simplify the denominator, because we already have it in factored form. There's no reason to change it. And just like in the previous section, when you have factors like this all multiplied together, you can cancel any of the ones you have in common. X minus 1's will cancel. And now you have your final answer. The x plus 4 on top divided by the 2 and the x minus 3 on the bottom. And although you could distribute that out, I would leave that in factored form. That's your final answer. So a lot of people will get to this point and stop, which, you know, you got a lot of the hard work done, but you need to make sure that you always look to see, can you factor and cancel that last step? Alright, one more example, and what I would do again is if it were me looking at these, I would pause the video right here, work it out myself, see if I can do it, you know, play it if you get stuck so you can kind of catch yourself up. But I'm going to go ahead and start working this out. So the left fraction, I can factor out a 3. I'll be left with x minus 5. Minus, again, the top right here is factorable, but I'm not going to do that. I don't need to. I don't need to factor the top at all. Not yet. The bottom right, though, can be factored. Factors a negative 5 that gets you negative 4 are negative 5 and positive 1. You have to know how to factor well. So this is just like the previous question. If you notice, they already have x minus 5s in common. The left fraction has a 3, though, that the right fraction does not have. And that's it. The left side has a 3. The left and the right side has a 3. They both have x minus 5, so this side's done. The right fraction has this x plus 1 that the left fraction does not have. So we're going to go ahead and multiply that to the left fraction. So now they both have 3's. They both have x plus 1's, and they both have x minus 5. So we've got the common denominator part done. So now we're going to simplify. This one's going to be a little bit easier than the previous question. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. Over your common denominator, I always put the number first or the single term first. And the x plus 1 and the x minus 5 will be next. Again, it does not make any difference what order you put that in. Minus 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 2 is 6. Over, and it should be the same thing. 3, yeah, it makes no difference. Even though this is x minus 5, x plus 1, it really makes no difference. I'm going to put them in the same order I have here, so they look the same. Now that we know they have common denominators, we're going to put our next step over that common denominator, and we're going to try to get this down to one fraction. So x squared minus no other x squared is just going to stay in x squared. 1x minus 6x is negative 5x. And then there's nothing over here, but it's minus a 6. A lot of people will bring down a plus 6. You can't do that. This negative has to be applied to it. So it's really 0 minus 6, which is negative 6. And again, a lot of people will stop here and think they're done, but you do need to look to see, can you factor further? In this case, you can. Factors of negative 6, that will get you a negative 5 when you add them, is negative 6 and positive 1. So sometimes you'll even factor and nothing will cancel, but you still need to do it. In this case, something does cancel. The x plus 1's cancel, and your final answer is the x minus 6, and on the bottom, the 3, and the x minus 5.